The story of Moses is one of the most compelling narratives in the Bible, illustrating how God can use even the most unlikely individuals to fulfill his divine purposes. From his miraculous survival as an infant to leading the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, Moses' life is a testament to God's power, patience, and purpose. Let's delve into the key moments of Moses' life and the timeless lessons they offer for us today. Moses was born during a time of great oppression for the Israelites. Pharaoh, fearing the growing population of the Hebrews, ordered the death of all male Hebrew infants. Despite this, Moses' mother, Jochebed, displayed incredible faith by hiding her baby for 3 months and then placing him in a basket on the Nile River. Lesson 1: God's plan often unfolds in ways that defy human understanding. Even in the darkest circumstances, God is working behind the scenes for his glory in our good. Key verse: by faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents. And they were not afraid of the king's edict. Hebrews 11 verse 23. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace, enjoying a life of privilege and education. However, his heart was moved by the suffering of his people. In an impulsive act, he killed an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew slave and fled to the wilderness of Midian to escape Pharaoh's wrath. Lesson 2: sometimes, God takes us through seasons of solitude to prepare us for greater purposes. Moses spent 40 years in Midian, learning humility and dependence on God. Key verse: who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Exodus 3 verse 11. Moses' question reflects his humility, but God's response reminds us that our strength comes from him. While tending sheep in Midian, Moses encountered God in the form of a burning bush. God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, but Moses hesitated, citing his lack of eloquence and qualifications. Lesson 3: God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Moses' initial doubts remind us that God's power is made perfect in our weakness. Key verse: now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. Exodus 4 verse 12. God equips those he calls, ensuring his purposes are fulfilled. Moses returned to Egypt and boldly confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Israelites. Despite Pharaoh's hardened heart and repeated refusals, Moses persevered, trusting God's promise. Lesson 4: obedience to God often requires courage and perseverance. Like Moses, we must trust God's plan, even when faced with opposition. Key verse: the Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still. Exodus 14 verse 14. This assurance sustains us in moments of fear and uncertainty. To compel Pharaoh to release the Israelites, God sent 10 plagues upon Egypt, each demonstrating his power over the Egyptian gods. From turning water into blood to the death of the firstborn, these plagues revealed God's sovereignty. Lesson 5: God's power is unmatched, and he will go to great lengths to deliver his people. The plagues remind us of his authority over all creation. Key verse: that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. Exodus 8 verse 10. God's works testify to his uniqueness and supremacy. After the final plague, Pharaoh relented, allowing the Israelites to leave Egypt. However, he soon pursued them with his army. Trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's forces, Moses trusted God, who parted the waters, enabling the Israelites to cross on dry ground. Lesson 6: God makes a way where there seems to be no way. When we face impossible situations, we can trust him to provide deliverance. Key verse: by faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land. Hebrews 11 verse 29. Faith opens the door to miracles. The Israelites' journey through the wilderness was marked by God's provision and their frequent complaints. From manna and quail to water from a rock, God demonstrated his faithfulness, even in the face of their doubts. Lesson 7: trusting God in the wilderness seasons of life strengthens our faith. God provides for our needs and teaches us to rely on him daily. Key verse: man does not live on bread alone but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Deuteronomy 8 verse 3. Spiritual sustenance is as vital as physical provision. At Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, establishing a covenant with the Israelites. This moment marked a pivotal step in their identity as God's chosen people. Lesson 8: God's laws are a gift, guiding us toward a life that honors Him. The commandments reflect His holy nature and His desire for a relationship with His people. Key verse: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Exodus 20 verse 2. God's commandments are rooted in His saving grace. Leading the Israelites was no easy task. Moses often interceded on their behalf, demonstrating patience and humility. Despite his occasional frustrations, he remained faithful to God's call. Lesson 9: Leadership requires both strength and humility. Moses' reliance on God is a model for anyone called to guide others. Key verse: Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. Numbers 12:3. True leadership reflects humility and dependence on God. Although Moses himself did not enter the promised land, he led the Israelites to its threshold, ensuring the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. Lesson 10: Our obedience and faithfulness impact future generations. Moses' legacy reminds us that God's plans extend beyond our lifetime. Key verse: The Lord showed him the whole land. Then the Lord said to him, This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Deuteronomy 34 verses 1-4. Moses' life is a powerful reminder that God can use anyone to accomplish His purposes. Despite his initial doubts and shortcomings, Moses' obedience and faith transformed him into one of history's greatest leaders. His story challenges us to trust God's calling, rely on His strength, and embrace the journey of faith. As we reflect on Moses' story, let us ask ourselves, how can we, like Moses, step into God's calling for our lives? What Red Sea moments are we facing, and how can we trust God to lead us through them? Remember, with God, the most unlikely leader can become a vessel for His glory.